Greetings from lowly, humble Vinyl Bear Studio here in lovely, scenic Paju City, South Korea. Just a quick note to let you know why I'm not using the new Airwindows ToTape9 in my mastering chain until I get the wherewithal to upgrade my hardware so that I can start working in 96 kilohertz, at least 96 kilohertz. Here's why. Because ToTape9 sounds not just fantastic, it sounds phenomenal. It sounds really, really good. Until I run the master through my Android smartphone. And then it still sounds pretty good, except that there's that, well, it's some people describe it as digital grit. Some people describe it as an unpleasant, glassy quality in the highs. To me, it's like a vaguely unpleasant pressure. Kind of like when you're in an airplane and the pressure builds up in your ears and you wish they'd pop. And so this is why, until I can up my project sample rate, I'm sticking with Tone Booster's Real Bus V3, which is presently turned on in my mastering chain. And you can see I've got a very nice harmonic spike profile in my 5 kilohertz signal hygiene protocol test here. 5 kilohertz sine wave being run through the entire chain and all buses in the mastering template. There's our fundamental at 5 kilohertz, second harmonic at 10 kilohertz, 15, and 20. That is a thing of beauty right there in my book. Now watch what happens when I unbypass ToTape9. There. This is no shade at Chris whatsoever. There are a fair number of Airwindows consolidated tools that I would love to be using on every project, but I refrain for this reason. Because I'm working at 48 kilohertz, and I see a lot these days in my feed. And I addressed this earlier in my videos when I first started this channel. I addressed this a little bit. But it seems like lately it's gotten more aggressive in my feed. 48 kilohertz is a scam. Why would you call it a scam? As if it's some kind of conspiracy. It just depends on your objectives. If you're working with loud, dense rock music, where there's a lot of masking going on, and a lot of guys seem to think that the stuff that you're seeing right here with dense mixes and dense arrangements with a lot of loud stuff going on. It gets masked anyway, so you might as well work at 44.1. I've seen all the arguments for it. To each their own. And if that floats your boat, then great. But making all these blanket pronouncements like 48, you're stupid if you're working at 48 kilohertz, it just has to do with your objectives. And there is a noticeable difference to me in the depth and quality of soundstage that can be achieved, especially in acoustic arrangements. Arrangements with a lot of dynamics. Natural dynamics. And microdynamics. Microtransient activity. There's a difference between 44.1 and 48. You know? And, well, that's my constraint for the time being. And this is what I'm looking at, and I can hear the difference, especially on, and I infer that if it's unpleasantly affecting my sound quality through chintzy little Android smartphone speakers, it's not going to fare too much better in a high-end system with a Class D amplifier and what are they called? Ribbon tweeters. This is really unforgiving hi-fi stuff. Is it going to fare any better through something like that? I was telling the missus on a trip to the shopping mall yesterday, trying to explain to her what I'm on about here. And I was like, you know, it's like if you were going to a social event with some other ladies and they're all carrying Louis Vuitton bags. I just picked Louis Vuitton because it's obvious example to pick. I was like, if you had a choice between carrying a top of the line, current model of a Louis Vuitton bag, but it's a counterfeit, or carrying a more modest Louis Vuitton bag. Maybe it's not the latest one. Maybe it's not top of the line, but at least it's the genuine article. It's the real thing. Which do you think you'd prefer to do? And my missus, being my missus, of course, said, well, obviously I want to carry the real thing. I said, exactly. That's the way I look at it. So this is why I'm being such a stickler about signal hygiene. I'm not making loud rock and roll music. I am masking some of this stuff very conscientiously and very deliberately, and only up to a certain point, and only where necessary. But this is just, I can't justify having this. And so it's something to look forward to, man. I'm either going to get a souped up muscle car of I'm looking at several options. A Lenovo ThinkPad, maybe 3 or 4 years old. Really, really soup it up for Linux, or go with a Mac Mini M4 and switch over to Logic Pro. Either way, I'm hoping to do that sometime this summer. And then I'll be able to use ToTape9. And I'll be happy, 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 because it sounds fantastic. Okay, that's it from lovely scenic Paju City, South Korea. The windbag over here, once again, well wishing you, may the winds of clarity blow 'tis free and ever in your favor, over and out.